Hey guys, tonight we're slipping off the map, walking where the sidewalks crumble and the streetlights flicker like they're unsure if anyone's still watching. The city sleeps, but not peacefully. There's something restless in the air. You step around a shattered beer bottle, hop over a shallow ditch where old rainwater gathers, and notice it. Something yellow, flickering just a bit. You freeze. It's not a glow stick, not glass. It's alive. You kneel down, squinting in the half-light. There, blooming between the cracked concrete slabs of this abandoned parking lot, is a flower. You don't expect it here. No one does. That's sort of the point. You glance around, empty fast food wrappers, a tangle of rusted bike chains, dried up weeds that look more like tumbleweed ghosts than plants. But this one's different. This one is blooming, fresh, open. And yes, there it is, a lone honeybee drifting low, confused, tempted, landing on this imposter. You crouch. The flower doesn't look like much. A pale yellow corolla, not even 2 inches wide, with petals that look like thin tissue. But something about it holds your gaze. Evening primrose. Buenothera biennis. Not a rose, not even close. You run your fingers near its base, the stems covered in tiny bristles. Its buds are cupped like fists, and those unopened fists wait until the sun sets to reveal what they're hiding. This flower is no fool. It doesn't bloom during the day, not here. It waits until the bees are gone, until the moths and other night pollinators take over. The ones that don't question too much, the ones that follow scent. You lean closer. There it is, sweet, sharp, a little musky. It smells like fruit that was left on the windowsill too long, which means this flower owns the night shift. You're watching a midnight con artist. It gets better. Evening primrose has been studied for its genetic mutability since the early 1900s. This little scrappy roadside flower became the darling of mutation theory. Botanists like Hugo de Vries watched it breed weirdly, unexpectedly, producing new forms almost every generation. You remember the first time you heard about it in class. Your professor called it a genetic wild card. It can self-pollinate, cross-pollinate, produce stable offspring or mutants, a coin toss with chromosomes. Botanians still debate whether this mutability is an ancient survival tactic or just botanical chaos. Either way, it makes you pause. You're kneeling in front of a plant that might not be genetically identical to its neighbors, or even to itself, season to season. It's not a species so much as a question mark with leaves. You kind of like that. You step back and scan the lot. Suddenly you notice there's not one evening primrose. There are 5, 10, a dozen, all scattered across this dead zone. Their stems are reddish, fading to green. Their leaves lance-shaped and curled like scrolls. Not flashy, not needy. That's their trick. They don't announce. They endure. You remember reading that evening primrose seeds can lie dormant for decades. They wait in the soil, patient, until something disturbs the ground. Construction, demolition, war. Then they wake up. This lot? Probably a gas station once, or a corner store. You can almost smell the oil if you close your eyes. And somewhere under that concrete, seeds waited. When the roof caved in and the walls came down, the light returned, rain slipped in, and they bloomed. That's the other thing. You don't find them until they find you. Now let's pull back, way back. There's a famous story from Kansas, 1953. After a tornado leveled half a town, locals returned to their properties to find nothing standing, just rubble and silence. But in the weeks after, yellow flowers popped up everywhere. Evening primroses, they realized, sprouting through bricks, along fence lines, even from inside a dented mailbox someone had nailed to a surviving tree. You trace your fingers across the petals now. Same shape, same stubborn heart. In Berlin, after the bombings of World War II, botanists recorded a similar phenomenon. Wildflowers, especially opportunists like evening primrose, rushed into the gaps where buildings fell. They called it Trümmersommer, the rubble summer, a season when flowers reclaimed a broken city. No one planted it, but it was there, already waiting. You pause at the edge of the lot, gravel crunching beneath your soles. Behind you, the city murmurs. Ahead, just the hush of night. The flowers still blooming. You think about how it tricked a bee, how it twisted its own genetics just to survive, how it waited in the dirt for its moment. And something in you softens, not because it's pretty, not because it won, but because something so small, so fragile, found a way to keep going, even when everything else around it broke. That's not just a flower. That's a lesson. That's the city, the world, you. The night deepens, the petals glow pale in the dark, and you walk away slower than before. You don't notice the wool at first. You're hiking a hillside in the Scottish Highlands. The mist is chewing at your boots, dampening your sleeves, blurring the distance. You're mostly here for the views, or that's what you told yourself. But the clouds are moody today, and the sheep are too far off to be cute. Still, something draws your eye. A speck of white and gold nestled among the gray rocks. You crouch. It's a daisy. Well, sort of. Leucanthemum vulgare, oxeye daisy. Native to Europe, yes. But you know this plant from somewhere else. New England, maybe? A roadside in Oregon? It grows just as easily on the shoulder of an interstate as it does on these hills. In fact, it's everywhere now, on 6 continents, in over 60 countries. And it didn't always ask permission. This one? It looks fresh. Open, eager. The petals reach like rays. The yellow center blinks up at the sky like it's hoping for a second sun. You lean in. Around it, dozens more daisy heads are swaying. Some tiny, some so wide they brush your ankle. It's a field now, one that wasn't here 50 years ago. And the daisy, it hitched a ride. The highlands once had fewer of these. But sheep move. Wool gathers seeds, and leucanthemum is clingy. In fact, this daisy was built to travel. Its seeds are small, light and barbed, perfect for catching on wool, socks, fur, or the hem of a skirt. That's not an accident. That's thousands of years of design, sculpted by wind, hooves, and the occasional flirtation with a backpack. You brush your sleeve and, yep, one seed's already stuck. But back to the past for a second. The oxeye daisy wasn't always beloved. In fact, in the 19th century, British landowners in Northumberland referred to it as white plague. Its ability to choke out pasture grasses made it an enemy of cows and a darling of anarchist gardeners. In 1842, a farmer named Ewan McCarran reportedly lost 3 acres of hay to a single unchecked patch. He tried to burn it. It came back. He tried to mow it. It seeded faster. His granddaughter once told a traveling botanist, "It's like the flower wants to be seen. Even when you bury it, it finds a way." She may not have known it, but she was describing something modern ecologists now call resilient phototropism. The daisy bends toward light, even buried under mulch or snow. It grows in curves until it finds an upward path. The flower sees the sun before you do. You rise and look down the hill. From this height, the field forms a kind of spiral pattern, like a wild mandala across the slope. It's subtle. You wouldn't notice from a car. But here, in the fog, you see it clearly, nature's messy attempt at symmetry. You follow the curve and the story. This plant didn't spread on its own. It used us, used livestock trails in the highlands, the ones sheep and goats have followed for centuries. Every fleece that brushed a daisy dropped a few more seeds a few steps later. Over years, over centuries, the map changed. There's even a case in Glen Etive, where ecologists compared historic sheep drives with current daisy clusters. The overlap was exact. The flower was following the flock, and the flock was following us. That's the thing about wildflowers. They don't need visas. They ride in pockets, wheel wells, even in the folds of old maps. By the time settlers brought sheep to New Zealand in the 1800s, leucanthemum came too. Probably not on purpose. Maybe stuck to a scarf. Maybe lining a straw hat. But now, it's one of the most invasive non-native wildflowers in the southern hemisphere. Botanists debate whether to call it beautiful or dangerous, or both. Some argue it disrupts native pollinators. Others say it offers food to bees when nothing else blooms. And still others, probably poets, just shrug and say, "It followed us. Who's really out of place?" You pluck a single petal, then stop. It's not polite. Perhaps to dismantle a traveler mid-journey. There's a theory from a small ecologist's note in 1971 that this daisy spread actually increased when humans began fencing in sheep. Why? Because the daisy now needed to work harder to move, so it evolved quicker germination, shorter cycles, greater stickiness. It got better at escape. Nature loves an obstacle, especially one with wool. And here's a quirky fact you didn't ask for. Ox-eye daisies close their petals in heavy rain, but only if no pollinators have visited yet. It's like they're saving themselves for a better day. Flowers, apparently, have standards. You sit on a rock and realize you've been tracing these daisies for half a mile. The mist hasn't lifted, but the wind has slowed. The air smells faintly of crushed green, sheep dung, and something sweet, like chamomile. Ox-eye daisies aren't technically chamomile, but they belong to the same tribe. And during World War I, British field medics sometimes made poultices from them when real antiseptics ran low. They weren't powerful, but they were better than nothing. Comfort matters, even if it doesn't cure. Maybe that's why people still let them grow, even when told not to. They're familiar, cheerful, a little too much, maybe, but persistent. You glance again at your sleeve. Another seed. By next week. That seed might be 10 miles from here, caught in a dog's fur, tucked into a boot tread, swept into a schoolyard. Or maybe it'll wait. These seeds can lie dormant for 5 years, just listening, sleeping, dreaming of light. Funny, we think of daisies as simple, but what you're really looking at is a network of migrants. Stubborn, cheerful, slightly sticky migrants who learn to ride wool and fences to win the world, and now they're winning your heart too. The air doesn't move here, not in the way you expect. It holds itself still, as if even the wind knows this place asks for reverence. You're not far from the Mekong now, but you're not in Asia. You're in a city, somewhere between a playground and a pharmacy, next to a mural of a pharaoh painted with spray cans and teenage dreams. And just under that mural, tucked between the iron grates and broken bottles, is a patch of green. At first, you think it's just a weed, and maybe it is. But then you kneel. It's something older, something stubborn, something you've seen before, though maybe only in museum photos, between hieroglyphs and glowing tour lights. Cleome gynandra, also called African spider flower, but here, in this New York lot, it's just a scraggly weed with palmate leaves and delicate lavender flowers that seem to stretch in all directions at once, like fireworks caught mid-bloom. And here's the real twist. This flower once grew in pharaohs' tombs. It was found in burial offerings, dried and folded next to gold. It was drawn in the margins of papyrus scrolls, always with long petals and those spider-like stamens, reaching up to the sun god. And now it's by a dumpster in Queens. You brush the petals gently, surprised to find a faint, nutty scent, a mix between arugula and pepper. It's edible, you remember, used in traditional cooking across Africa and parts of Asia. High in vitamin A, rich in iron. But how did it get here? Here's the part most people miss. Cleome gynandra travels like myth. It moves with people, tucked in trade routes, in kitchen pouches, in rice sacks, brought across oceans not by seeds scattered in wind, but by memory. This is what scientists call a cultural hitchhiker. It didn't arrive as an invader. It arrived as a helper, a taste of home. When African migrants came to the Americas, voluntarily or not, they brought seeds like this with them, in hair, in cloth, in the folds of stories. And once here, the plant adapted, quietly, brilliantly. Its seeds fell into city soil. It accepted poorer light, different pollinators, new languages of wind and water. And it didn't just survive, it spread. In the 1930s, a botanist named Luther Stokes noticed it growing near Harlem. He mistook it for a tropical escapee from a greenhouse. Then he found it again in Newark, again in Baltimore. By 1942, it had reached Mississippi, and always near migrant housing, church steps, or backyard gardens. He wrote, "The flower that follows the cookpot, not grown but not wild." And here's your mystery. Botanists still argue, is it native now or just tolerated? It grows without help. Yes, it naturalized. But it rarely forms dense colonies. It pops up in ones and twos, like memories that refuse to fade. You look again at the patch under the mural. 5 blooms, some wilting, one just budding. Behind them, weeds curl upward, crabgrass, mugwort, a single brave tomato plant. But the spider flower stands apart, like it remembers something. You imagine someone walking this sidewalk 50 years ago. Maybe her name was Ao. Maybe she missed her grandmother's stew, the one that simmered cleome with chili and peanut. Maybe she dropped a few seeds here without thinking. Or maybe they fell from a bag, or a story. Either way, the flower remembered. That's not all. Cleome gynandra has a rare trick. It can switch its photosynthesis mode in response to heat. Normally, plants use C3 photosynthesis. It's fine for mild conditions. But when things get hot, like sidewalk hot, Cleome switches to C4, a more efficient process that conserves water and energy. It's like switching to low power mode in summer. Only a few flowering plants can do this. It's a high-level adaptation, like passing biology class with one eye closed. That's how it survives New York heat waves, or Nairobi droughts, or Saigon smog. Wherever humans sweat, Cleome thrives. You walk on. The street hums around you. Buses, kids shouting, the snap of gum. But you keep seeing it. In empty lots, in schoolyard corners, even beside a UPS warehouse near Flatbush. A single spider flower had burst through the gravel like it owned the zip code. People walk by without seeing it. But it's there, rooted in 4,000 years of migration. From Nile to Niger, from Sahel to subways. You think back to tomb KV62, Tutankhamun's tomb. Among the gold and resin and broken fans, archaeologists found a garland. Inside that garland, dried petals of Cleome, not ceremonial, just familiar, something personal, as if someone thought he should smell home, even in death. And now, the same petals bloom between pigeons and gum wrappers. It makes you wonder. Maybe weeds aren't weeds at all. Maybe they're stories that refuse to stay buried. You lean close to the mural again. The pharaoh stares forward, cool and cartoonish. But the flowers below him bloom real. Cleome doesn't care who notices. It just grows, always has. You're back in the city. Different street, same rhythm. Trash bins line the sidewalk like tired sentinels. The air smells like asphalt and old bagels. And yet, Right there, in a sliver of dirt between curb and gutter, a familiar face. You bend down. You've seen this flower before. It's Plantago major, broadleaf plantain, not the banana, the weed, the green rosette with leaves like tongues and a central spike rising like a dare. The same one that once grew near Pharaoh's tombs, now growing next to a hot dog stand and someone's lost sock. There's something quietly absurd about that. This is a weed that followed humanity like a rumor, across continents, through conquests. It grows where we walk, not because we plant it, but because we disturb the soil enough for it to feel welcome. And New York? New York is its kingdom now. You look closer. Beneath the subway overpass, cracks in the concrete give it just enough room. The base of a lamppost, between bricks of a pre-war stoop, even inside the playground sandbox, a plantain plant gently waving at a toddler. You wonder, how did it get here? The story starts with colonialism. Plantago major is native to Eurasia. But when Europeans crossed to the Americas, their boots and wagons carried the seeds. So many. In fact, that some Native American tribes gave it a name, white man's footprint. It wasn't an insult, it was observation. Wherever colonizers went, the weed followed, quietly, patiently, like a tag-along kid with dirt on its face and big dreams. And that's the start of our final tale. Not of one plant, but of many. Weeds, wildflowers, whatever word you like best, taking advantage of our highways, our ports, our good intentions and bad habits. From tombs to food courts, somewhere in a university herbarium, there's a dusty cardboard folder labeled Plantago major, collected 1891, Staten Island. The note reads, one of the earliest successful European introductions, flourishing. That was 134 years ago. It's still flourishing. But now, it's more than a European migrant. It's a global citizen. From Berlin tram stops to Melbourne skate parks. You'll find it. You'll crush it with your heel. It won't mind. It sends up another rosette by morning. You cross into the next block, East Harlem, maybe, and spot it again. A whole family this time. Beside them, a lanky, star-shaped flower with purple stems and serrated leaves. That's Galansoga parviflora, another weed, another transplant. This one's from Central America. It arrived via Botanic Gardens, escaped, then moved faster than the city could name it. Some call it gallant soldier, others, quickweed. Here's the fun part. It blooms 10 days after germination. 10 days. That's faster than your Amazon delivery. Faster than a weekend plan falling apart. And it can flower up to 7 times in a single summer. You're looking at the Usain Bolt of weeds. Botanists debate whether this trait is sustainable. Can it really produce viable seeds that quickly? One study asked in 2003. Turns out, yes, very viable and very determined. You remember one summer in Brooklyn, 2018, when sanitation crews cleared out a median strip in July. Within 2 weeks, Gallant Soldier had returned, taller, angrier, like a kid who'd been told no once and decided to major in revenge. And still, people walk past. You don't? Because now, you see it. You see how all these flowers, unplanted, uninvited, misunderstood, have found a home here, how their migrations mirror our own. Some came by accident, others came in hope. A few came hidden, carried in wedding bouquets or army boots or sandwich bags of contraband seed. They grew in Harlem, in Newark, in Queens, even on the edges of Ellis Island itself. There's a record from 1925 of Erigeron canadensis, Canadian horseweed, growing between 2 crates of luggage belonging to Russian immigrants. No one noticed, but the plant did. It bloomed, because that's what these weeds do. They don't wait for permission. They don't care if you call them invasive. They take your sidewalks and make them stories. You remember a quote. You think it was from a Staten Island groundskeeper, 1994. He was pointing at a patch of dandelions in a public housing courtyard and said, "That's the only damn thing in this neighborhood that comes back every year and asks nothing from nobody." It stuck with you, because it's true. And dandelions? They were brought here, too, on purpose. Early colonists used them for food and medicine. Now, they're enemy number one on suburban lawns. But in cities, they thrive. They find the cracks. They grow beside bike racks and bus stops and busted phone booths, like survivors do. You pause again. The hum of the city continues. Steam vents, ice cream truck jingles, someone playing saxophone on a stoop, the notes floating like pollen, and the weeds keep growing. A weed on your left has 3 petals and smells like garlic. A weed on your right has no scent, but you know the leaves make a decent poultice. You've stopped calling them weeds, haven't you? They're wildflowers now. City-bred, smog-fed, beautifully adapted. They remind you that beauty isn't what gets planted in rows. It's what refuses to die in the face of concrete. And as the sky bruises into twilight, and the lights flicker on one by one, you walk slower. You begin to spot more of them. The nameless, the stubborn, the cracked and curled, the green between stories. You don't need a guidebook anymore. You're part of the migration now.